Justice Sotomayor has a lot to say about what's actually going on in the medical world. Whether or not it's true, we'll let the fact checkers decide. So we'll talk just a bit about the Supreme Court and what's happening with the vaccine mandate. In other news, Bob Saget has passed away at 65. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, after partying maskless in Miami, has contracted the pinko fucking pox. And Cyber Ninjas, the company that led the Arizona GOP election audit, is breaking up at this point. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, guys, I've got some good news and some bad news. It turns out that I'm pretty sure I've got the pinko fucking pox. I have not been PCR tested yet, and I probably won't. I do have to take some time and let the employer know here, but loose, wet cough yesterday, almost all of yesterday, altered sense of taste this morning, and a particularly nasty but temporary fever. It's kind of why I'm wearing the sweatshirt right now, too, even though I feel fantastic at this point, with the exception of the altered sense of taste. You knew that it couldn't be that much around me for that long without without me getting popped. So, hey, my number came up eventually. Looks like it's going to be very mild. It's probably going to be the Irma Gerd variant, most likely. I'm not going to go and get PCR tested, of course. Well, I might have to, just to prove that that's what I have here, but yeah. This has not been a fun 24 hours, I can tell you that here, but the news stops for nobody, and we have got plenty of it to get to over here on Contemporary. But before we get started, guys, make sure you go and check out TurnSomePagesProductions.com. If I'm going to be out of work for 5 days on quarantine, that fundraiser is going to be coming up here, but go check out and bookmark the webpage here. It's going to be a great place where you can go and check out great shows such as The Daily Ignoramus. Keep in mind, remember, The Daily Ignoramus is late night tonight because he is in the studio, so make sure you guys go and check him out. One of my favorite shows. Also check out The Porch Boys, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Already Conservative, and the upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman. Go check out all of those shows. They're great friends of the network. We will have another show joining us at launch, so come and check that out as well. Another great friend of the network too, so it's going to be a great time. Make sure you guys go and bookmark the page and go check that out. Let's look at finance for the day. Starting on the Dow ended just barely below 4.81 points down to 36,231.66. Unfortunately for the Dow and all the other exchanges, the futures are turning downward as well right now. So it's looking like it's going to be a slow start to the markets. We'll continue to watch and see where that goes. Looking in at your Bitcoin, let's get a refresh on this. Bitcoin is on a tumble as well, $40,847.70 US dollars. That's down another $1,000 per coin, or 2.45%. So we're starting to see a lot of stuff come crashing down, especially given the fact that the government got involved with a lot of the stuff. So we will see what happens with that and go with that. Looking in at your industrials, copper is down, steel is down, aluminum is up. Looking in at your individual plays, all coppers are down. Looks like all steels are down too. Aluminum is mixed with siding down, aluminum copper fin down, radiators are down, cans are up, sheet aluminum is down, rims are down, electric motors. So it's pretty much just cans that are holding that up right now. So that's what we see off of that. Electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down, batteries are down, catalytic converters are all up, compressors are up, alternators are down, carbide is down, hard drives, motherboards are both up, power supplies for a computer are down, low grade boards in a PC tower are both up. So that's what we see coming up out of your industrials. That's where we go with that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow Jones futures fall, NASDAQ futures off sharply with market rally at key levels. What to do now? From Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures fell Monday morning along with S&P 500 futures and especially NASDAQ futures. The stock market rally came under pressure last week as Treasury yields soared to their highest level since the coronavirus pandemic began. The S&P 500 is set to test its 50-day line at the open, while the NASDAQ threatens to undercut its December lows. The new year started off with a solid rally on Monday, led by Tesla, AMD, Nvidia, and Apple, but the rest of the week was an expectation breaker, with the major indices selling off and leaders such as Tesla reversing hard. Surging Treasury yields were the driving force as a surprisingly hawkish Fed and Friday's job report helped spur selling in bonds that slammed growth stock names and buoyed financials. Rising crude oil prices lifted energy stocks. But the overall trend was negative. The stock market rally is an uptrend under pressure. Investors should recalibrate their expectations and respond accordingly. Tesla, AMD, and Nvidia are on the IBD leaderboard. Hilton, Worldwide, and Cheniere Energy are studied in the video that's involved with this. Late Friday, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said his company would raise the price of full self-driving in the US by $2,000 to $12,000 as we move back up to the top of the article and now have to go back and find where we were. He also said FSD Beta 10.9 will be released soon, but Tesla stock fell nearly 3% early Monday. Taiwan Semiconductor reported December sales rose 32% versus a year earlier, ahead of quarter 4 earnings on Thursday. Taiwan Semiconductor rose modestly in pre-market trade. Lululemon Athletica said quarter 4 earnings and sales will be at the low end of guidance. Lululemon stock tumbled before the open. Zynga soared as Take-Two Entertainment agreed to buy the mobile game maker for $12.75 billion. TTWO stock fell sharply. Zynga, huh? Haven't heard that name for quite a while. I don't even know what it was that they make anymore. I've played Zynga games before. I recognize the name. I just can't think of what it is that they have currently out there. A number of medical firms were reporting drug trial data. Preliminary sales of various partnerships with the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference starting on Monday. On the futures, Dow futures dipped 0.4% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures declined 0.75%. NASDAQ 100 futures fell 1.3%. Jeez. Tesla, AMD, Nvidia, and Apple weighed on NASDAQ and S&P 500 futures. Crude oil futures edged lower before the open. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Alright, let's grab one briefly from CNBC. S&P 500 heads for 5th straight decline. NASDAQ futures fall 1%. From Hannah Meow. Stock futures moved lower early Monday after a rocky start to 2022 for equity markets as interest rates rise. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average were down 82 points. S&P 500 futures slipped by 0.5% rather. NASDAQ 100 futures dropped nearly 1%, and that was last night, by the way. That was 14 hours ago when that was decided. They've gone down significantly further since then. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ are coming off 4 straight days of losses, while the Dow has retreated in 3 consecutive sessions. The rough start for the year for stocks has come as interest rates have spiked. The benchmark 10-year Treasury yield was near 1.77% on Monday morning after ending the year near 1.51% on Sunday. Goldman Sachs projected that the Federal Reserve to hike rates 4 times in 2022, signaling that Wall Street increasingly expects the central bank to get aggressive in an attempt to curb inflation. Investors readied for a big week that will include key inflation data as well as a confirmation hearing for Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Earnings season also kicks off this week. The S&P 500 is expected to show a growth rate of 21.7%, which would be the 4th straight quarter above 20% according to FactSet. And I still don't think, with the interest rates out there, it's going to be enough to bring it back up to break-even point from where the beginning of the year was. Honestly, I think that this is going to be a hard year for people who have stuff in the Dow, especially for their 401ks. But that's what we see coming off of that. Let's get into the big news of the day, starting with, we got to throw some F's up in the chat for somebody who graced our living rooms, especially I think with the age group that the majority of us are in, through the 80s and 90s, and even into the 2010s and above, with Netflix's new special. And that is that comedian actor Bob Saget found dead inside Orlando hotel room, deputies say. This is from Fox 35 News staff from Fox 35 out of Orlando. The Orange County Sheriff's Office confirmed the death of actor and comedian Bob Saget on Sunday. Saget was 65 years old. In a tweet, the Sheriff's Office said deputies were called to the Ritz-Carlton, Orlando, for a call about an unresponsive man in a hotel room. The Sheriff's Office identified the man as Robert Saget, pronouncing him dead at the scene. According to the tweet, detectives say they found no signs of foul play or drug use. Deputies said the medical examiner's office will determine Saget's cause of death. There are people that are saying that this is vaccine related. I don't know if that is the case or booster related. I don't know. I can't speculate on any of that right now. But, I mean, this is a guy who's awfully young to just be found dead in a hotel room. But I've also got to wonder now, because this is the second week in a row where we've had to talk about this here. Is this going to be just like it was at the end of 2018, where it's Celebrity Death of the Week? Because remember 2018, that was constant. All the time. Every week, just about, somebody passed away. But yeah, we're at 2 weeks in a row, so. Breaking TMZ confirms comedian and actor Bob Saget has died at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando. There are several Orange County Sheriff's deputies outside the hotel right now working to learn the cause of death. Fox 35 Orlando. Let's listen. That's it. That's all that we have. Saget was in Florida over the weekend on his comedy tour. Bob Saget, I Don't Do Negative tour. Well, there are a few people in West Palm Beach and Oklahoma City that are probably going to be getting a refund at some point here. Morbid as it is to say. He had stops in Orlando on Friday and Ponte Vedra Beach on Saturday. Saget was well known for his stint on Full House as Danny Tanner. Though he wasn't a stint in Full House, he was Full House. Along with many acting, hosting, and stand-up gigs throughout the years. So, yeah, I mean, the guy was entertaining. You wouldn't believe, like, I've listened to some of his stand-up, you wouldn't believe that this was squeaky clean Danny Tanner either. Listening to some of the stand-up, this guy was nasty, but yeah, he's been in everything. He's been Law and Order, he's been in Full House, he's had guest appearances, he was the voice of How I Met Your Mother. He was the narrator, which I never understood that, by the way. Just a little bit of confusion there, because Ted was an adult during the events that he was describing in the year 2030, back to his kids, so why did he have to have a different voice? Why did Bob Saget have to do the voice for Ted Mosby? For the narration? He was uncredited for it, but you know that voice. That voice is iconic. You can tell what that voice is, but that's what we see going off of that. So F's in the chat for Saget. Hopefully, we'll get some answers as to what happened with that, but if it's booster related, we probably won't hear a word about it. Alright, let's talk about the title card of the show. Now, before we do that, let's talk about the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez D-Twitch. From The Hill, Ocasio-Cortez tests positive for breakthrough COVID-19 case. From Olafimihan Oshin. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez D-Twitch announced Sunday that she tested positive for the pinko pox in at least the fourth breakthrough case among congresspeople this weekend. In a statement on Sunday, Ocasio-Cortez's office said the Congresswoman is experiencing symptoms and is recovering at home. The Congresswoman received her booster shot this fall and encourages everyone to get their booster shot and follow all CDC guidance, Ocasio-Cortez's office said. Ocasio-Cortez's announcement comes after Reps Jim Cooper, Sean Casten, and Young Kim announced on Saturday they tested positive for the novel coronavirus. The U.S. is currently dealing with a winter surge of the pinko fucking pox. The 7-day average for new cases in the country topped 700,000 for the first time this weekend, according to data from Johns Hopkins. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that I'm one of those too, by the way, which is lame. But at least, for the most part, it's over. All right. From CNBC, Supreme Court conservatives should be skeptical of Biden's vaccine or test rules. I'm sorry, they sound skeptical, not should be. They should be skeptical, you're right, but they sound skeptical of the vaccine or test rules. From Kevin Breininger and Spencer Kimball. The Supreme Court's conservative majority on Friday sounded skeptical of the Biden admin's sweeping COVID vaccination or testing requirements for private businesses. The justices questioned the Labor Department's health rules, as well as a federal vaccine mandate for healthcare workers, during oral arguments that were ongoing for nearly 3 hours. The arguments, which started at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, kicked off with a lawyer for a national small business group arguing against the private business rules, which would apply to tens of millions of workers. The arguments concluded 4 hours later. The court is set to reconvene at 10 a.m. on Monday. That's Eastern Time, so that's going to be in about an hour and 15 minutes. The Brandon administration has postponed the enforcement of the vaccine and testing requirements until February 9th. The rest of the mandate, which includes masking for the unvaccinated workers, is set to go into effect on Monday. The National Federation of Independent Business attorney Scott Keller was grilled by the court's 3 liberal justices, who at times sounded incredulous about the proposal to halt the workplace health precautions, while the pinko pox cases surged to new heights. Swing Justice John Roberts questioned Keller about why the Labor Department did not have the authority to regulate the special workplace problem posed by the plandemic. But Roberts also expressed skepticism while questioning Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar, arguing for the Brandon administration about the federal government's efforts. It seems to me that the government's trying to work across the waterfront, he said. Roberts is likely a must-have vote for the Brandon administration's rules to survive the court's 6-3 conservative majority. Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, 2 of the 3 sitting justices appointed by the former president, asked about the applicability of the major questions doctrine. Is that like the JQ? Which would require Congress to weigh in on matters of such significance. Samuel Alito, a reliable conservative vote, pushed Prelogar on the question of whether the vaccines pose a health risk, even as he stressed that he was not disputing that the COVID shots have been deemed safe and effective. Yes, breakthrough case after breakthrough case. It is unclear when the court will issue rulings in the time-sensitive cases. Keller asked the justices to act now to block the rule before enforcement starts, arguing that workers will quickly quit their jobs if OSHA's schedule is upheld. The debate, which centers on whether the federal government has the authority to enforce the sweeping public health requirements, arrives at the High Court as the plandemic enters its 3rd year. Excuse me. The rules challengers include business associations, Republican-led states, and religious groups. Court rulings on the emergency requests are expected relatively soon. The "oh shit" administration's rule, which requires workers to get vaccinated or be tested for the pinko fucking pox on a weekly basis, applies to companies with 100 or more employees. The rule from the Department of Health and Human Services would require vaccination for healthcare workers in facilities that treat Medicare and Medicaid patients. Unfortunately, I do think that the Brandon administration is going to have authority in that small niche area, because these facilities are federally funded, which means that they can take away the federal funding if people aren't getting vaccinated while they're working there. They can come back and hold that over your head, which right in and of itself is more proof that you shouldn't be taking any federal funding whatsoever. I understand that there are some of these care facilities and these people are on Medicare, and that's the only way they can afford to be in the facilities, but still, if you take federal funding, then you know what's coming to you. It's just plain and simple at this point. The 2 mandates cover roughly 2/3 of all U.S. workers, about 100 million Americans, according to the White House. President Brandon issued the mandates early November, 2 weeks before the first detection of the highly transmissible Ermagerd variant drove infection rates to staggering new highs around the country. Days later, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit blocked the mandate for businesses from taking effect, with a 3-judge panel ruling that the requirements were staggeringly overbroad. Yeah, they are. You're correct on that. And once again, I mean, all the other safety equipment that you have to wear at work. Your safety glasses. A smock to take up sparks flying. A work glove that you're required to wear. Ear protection. Any other eye protection. All the rest of the stuff that you have to do, you can take off as soon as you get home. The vaccine, you can't. And that's the big difference between what's going on here and why this is an argument, because you can't take the vaccine off once you clock out for the day. All right. We got some video here. Listen, Justice Sotomayor claims the hospitals are almost to full capacity. There are over 100,000 children hospitalized with COVID, many on ventilators. Let's have a listen.
Country today than we had a year ago in January. We have hospitals that are almost at full capacity with people severely ill on ventilators. We have over 100,000 children, which we've never had before, in serious condition, and many on ventilators. So saying it's a different variant just underscores the fact that without country today than we had a year ago in January. We have hospitals that are almost at full capacity with people severely ill on ventilators. We have over 100,000 children, which we've
Over 100,000 children. Did you guys know that? Did you know that that's the case, that it's almost 100,000 children that are sitting in there with the pinko pox? They're on ventilators. Did you know that? I'm pretty sure that I need a citation for that one. I really do. But that's what we see off of that. COVID, no federal answer. FJB 2021 tweets out, hospitals at capacity with about half their beds being empty. Which I do have to push back slightly on that, because do keep in mind that even if half their beds are empty, they have to be staffed to a certain point in order to use those beds. So yes, the beds themselves might be empty, but if they're firing people left and right for not having the vaccine, for not going along with the mandate and everything else, if they're firing people left, right, and center for that, then they can't use all those beds. That is something to keep in mind as we go. All right. Ross Kaminsky, blue checked, and I don't know why. Talk show host at KOA Colorado, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Mountain Time. AM Spectator, Dad, Husband, Trader, Adventure Traveler, Liberty is an end in itself. No, it's not for Vladimir. Ross Kaminsky tweets out, Sotomayor says, I don't understand why states would have the power, but the federal government wouldn't. That's basically the mantra of her approach to everything. SCOTUS. Hashtag SCOTUS. Which I was tagged in this as well by Mr. Arvold, who says, oh fuck, we're all so screwed if a sitting Supreme Court justice doesn't understand this. Tagged, of course, into this, and yeah. Apparently, if you're sitting on the Supreme Court, reading of the 10th Amendment doesn't apply to you. From the Blaze, left-leaning fact-checker nails Justice Sotomayor over wildly false claim about children. COVID-19 from Chris Enlow. PolitiFact, a left-leaning fact-checker, swiftly corrected Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor over a wildly false claim that she made on Friday. While hearing oral arguments for and against President Brandon's employer vaccine mandate, Sotomayor claimed that 100,000 children in the U.S. are hospitalized and in serious condition with the pinko fucking pox. We have hospitals that are almost at full capacity with people severely ill on ventilators. We have over 100,000 children, which we've never had before, in serious condition, and many on ventilators, Sotomayor claimed. PolitiFact used government data to explain why Sotomayor's claims were wildly false. While the number of coronavirus-positive pediatric hospitals has risen with the spread of the Ermagerd variant, Sotomayor's number was way off, the fact-checker said. At this time, she made this comment, federal data showed that fewer than 5,000 coronavirus-positive children were in the hospital at all. In fact, fewer than 8,300 children have been hospitalized for the pinko pox cumulatively since August of 2020. Excuse me. The fact check continued. There are over 100,000 cases among children, but scientists say that few of those are severe. We rate the statement false, PolitiFact declared. Oddly, PolitiFact did not hit Sotomayor with its pants on fire rating, despite the Supreme Court justice's claims not being even close to reality. PolitiFact's most recent pants on fire ratings have gone mostly to claims about the pinko pox pandemic, a category that Sotomayor's false claims fit in, and statements against Democrats. So yeah, when Politico is telling you that you're wrong as a Democrat, as an activist Democrat, you're probably wrong. All right, let's grab one from the New Yorker. Vaccine mandates have a bad day at the Supreme Court. From Amy Davidson Sorkin. I'm not saying the vaccines are unsafe, Samuel Alito said on Friday during oral arguments at the Supreme Court in the case of National Federation of Independent Businesses versus the OSHA administration, which involves OSHA's tester vaccine mandate for firms with 100 or more employees, other than those who work at home or outdoors. He knew that the FDA had approved the vaccines. They actually haven't. He said, "I'm not contesting that in any way. I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm sure that I will be misunderstood." Alito uttered those lines in a sour, sing-song tone, as if he were speaking to the recalcitrant child, and not as he was to Elizabeth Prelogar, the U.S. Solicitor General, who was defending the OSHA in this case, which was brought by the NFIB, an industry group in 27 states, all with Republican governors or attorneys general. What was hard to miss, if not to misunderstand, was Alito's hostility to the mandate. The tenor of the question asked by other justices, notably Chief Justice John Roberts, similarly suggested that the mandate, which would apply to about 80 million people, has little chance of going into effect in its present form. The prospects look better for a second mandate, which applies only to workers in healthcare facilities that receive Medicare and Medicaid funds, and would affect about 10 million people. The oral arguments in the case Brandon versus Missouri, which combines the cases initiated by the attorneys general in multiple states, immediately followed the first, but that outcome is hardly a sure thing, and that is remarkable on a couple levels. First, while the supposed problem with the OSHA mandate is that it is federal overreach, which it is, the federal interest in the context of Medicare and Medicaid is fairly clear. As Sonia Sotomayor put it, speaking from the government's perspective, "If you want my money, your facility has to do this." Elaine Kagan summed up the message to providers in the context of controlling the pinko fucking pox even more bluntly. The one thing you can't do is kill your patients. Second, even though, like Alito, the lawyers challenging the mandates protested that they had nothing against the vaccines, the thrust of their argument was that getting vaccinated is a terrible imposition that reasonable people might be compelled to quit their jobs rather than endure. These are not fringe group lawyers, but the representatives of multiple states. Elizabeth Murrell, the Louisiana Solicitor General, described what was being asked of workers at Medicare and Medicaid providers as an invasive, irrevocable, forced medical procedure being imposed in an unprecedented bureaucratic power move. That is a lot to lay on a simple shot that protects against a disease that has taken more than 800,000 American lives. Citation needed, please. So even the New Yorker is saying this is probably going to be a bad day for mandates. Let's grab one from SCOTUS blog. Court seems poised to block vaccine or test policy for workplaces, but may allow vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. From Amy Howe. The Supreme Court heard an oral argument on Friday in two sets of challenges to the Brandon administration's authority to combat the pinko pox pandemic. For over 2 hours of debate, the justices were skeptical of the admin's attempt to impose a vaccine or test mandate for workers at large employers. In the second case, which lasted for roughly an hour and a half, the justices were more receptive to the admin's efforts to impose a vaccine mandate for healthcare workers at facilities that receive federal funding. Both cases came to the Supreme Court last month on an emergency basis, and in an unusual move, the justices opted to fast-track the cases for oral arguments on the question whether the mandates can remain in place, while the challenges to their legality continues in the lower courts. Even beyond the subject matter of the arguments themselves, the specter of the pinko pox loomed over the courtroom from the outset, with 8 justices took to the bench All but one of them, Justice Neil Gorsuch, wore masks. That was a sharp departure from the prior in-person arguments during the pandemic when Sotomayor has been the only justice wearing a mask. Sotomayor, who has lifelong diabetes that puts her at higher risk from the pinko pox, did not take to the bench at all. She instead opted to participate in Friday's arguments remotely. In addition, for the first time since the court's return to in-person arguments, 2 of the 6 lawyers participated by phone, according to Reuters. Ohio Solicitor General Benjamin Flowers contracted the pinko pox after Christmas, while Louisiana Solicitor General Elizabeth Murrill argued remotely in accordance with the protocols, which requires arguing attorneys who test positive for the pinko pox to argue by phone. The first case, the National Federation of Independent Businesses versus Department of Labor, centers on the vaccine or test mandate issued by the OSHA administration. It requires all employers with 100 or more employees, roughly 2/3 of the private sector, to compel those employees to be either vaccinated or be tested weekly and wear masks at work. Representing the business groups, lawyer Scott Keller warned that allowing the mandate to remain in place would cause a massive economic shift, resulting in billions upon billions of non-recoverable costs for businesses. If Congress intended to give OSHA the power to combat the pinko pox by imposing rules like vaccine or test mandates, he told the justices it needed to do so clearly. The question, Keller emphasized, is not what the U.S. is going to do about the pinko pox, but instead who's going to decide what to do. So it is looking like that this is going to get blocked, which there are a couple things with that too, and really honestly, excuse me, and I mentioned this before in numerous ideas as we go about this and talk about this. First off, the arbitrary cutoff of 100 employees. That is telling me that this is not as important as the OSHA tells me it is, because if this was that important, then this would be all employees. This would be everything, no matter what, everywhere, because OSHA has mandate over every business, whether it has 2 employees or 2,000 employees. They do have mandate over all that. So the 100 employee thing, that's an arbitrary cutoff. But secondly, as we go on, as we talk about more of this here, the biggest problem that a lot of people have had with this is there doesn't seem to be any urgency for this. The Irma Gerd variant came out and the vaccine mandate came out at about the same time. But because of the Small Business Administrations coming out and begging the Biden admin, they turned around and said, yeah, we're not going to do this, we're not going to talk about this, and we're not going to go with this until after Christmas. So get all your temp employees in and do that. So that's what we see off of that. My camera just turned off on the Instagram side. I don't know why. But that's what we're seeing off of that. From the Hill. This was an interesting one as well, because what we talked about at the end of last week with people lying on dating apps about their vaccination status because the men on them are looking and seeing a possible infertility issue with the women who got vaccinated. Study, COVID-19 vaccines may cause temporary slight change to menstrual cycle. From Carolyn Vakil. Pinko pox vaccination may cause a temporary change to a person's menstrual cycle, but it appears to be a small change according to a study published on Thursday. The study, published by Obstetrics and Gynecology Journal, examined close to 4,000 people, vaccinated and unvaccinated, and examined menstruation data that individuals entered through an app called Natural Cycles. Researchers then examined the difference between menstruation data before and after individuals received their vaccine doses. For individuals who did not receive the vaccine, researchers looked at 6 consecutive menstrual cycles. The researchers found that in vaccinated individuals, bleeding was prolonged by a time that amounted to less than a day. However, they concluded that this slight change, while statistically significant, was not clinically significant. After adjusting for confounders, we found that normally cycling individuals experience small variations in cycle length regardless of vaccination status, researchers said, which is all good and well because they did a study for this, but of course we've got to reach out for anecdotal evidence as well, and the only reason I use this for Britt is because she put it out there on Twitter. Otherwise, this is a personal thing for her, but she put it out there, so I'm sorry, Britt, it's fair game. Britt Tweets out 8 months, 10-day cycles so heavy I thought I was hemorrhaging. Breakthrough bleeding, periods to start and end every month. They're so frequent. Freckled Liberty and Soup Cannon Kiss can attest I thought I had uterine cancer or was going through early menopause. Not slight, not at all. So, we've got an anecdotal case of this where it seems very, very heavy, and a Hill coming out in a study because they have to come out and find an end to this. So, that's what we see off of that. From CNBC, Citigroup will terminate the unvaccinated workers by January 31st, the first among Wall Street banks. From Hugh Sun, Citigroup will be the first major Wall Street institution to enforce a vaccine mandate by terminating non-compliant workers by the end of this month. The bank reminded employees in a memo sent Friday about its policy, first disclosed in October, that they must be fully vaccinated as a condition of employment. At that time, the bank said employees had to submit proof of vaccination by January 14th. Those who haven't complied by next week will be put on unpaid leave, with their last day of employment being January 31st, according to the memo, which was first reported by Bloomberg. A spokeswoman for the New York-based bank declined to comment. Citigroup, the third biggest U.S. bank by assets and a major player in a fixed income market, has the most aggressive vaccine policy among Wall Street firms. Rival banks including J.P. Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs have so far stopped short of terminating unvaccinated employees. Citigroup, led by CEO Jane Fraser since March of last year, said it made the decision because, as a government contractor, it needed to comply with President Brandon's executive order on the vaccines. The bank also said that enforcing the mandate would help ensure the safety of employees who return to office work. More than 90% of employees are compliant with the vaccine mandate, and that figure is rising as the deadline nears, according to a person with knowledge of the matter. The bank had 220,000 employees as of late last year, although the policy applies to only the US-based staff. While some technology companies have embraced the remote work as a permanent model, Wall Street CEOs, including J.P. Morgan Chase's Jamie Dimon and Morgan Stanley's James Gorman, have been vocal about the need to pull workers back. But the spread of the Ermagerd variant of the Pinko pox has forced companies to suspend back-to-work plans yet again, making it the latest disruption caused by the pandemic. So that's all we have off of this. If you work for Citigroup, I apologize. I won't be using them anymore, but I don't use them anyway. But yeah, that's what we see off of that. Breaking 911 just in. Houston mother charged after 14-year-old child found in trunk of car at the drive-through COVID testing site. The mom told police that the child had tested positive and needed to be quarantined. The child was unharmed. KPRC. Reading from Click 2 Houston, Cy-Fair ISD teacher bonds out of jail after allegedly putting 13-year-old in trunk for fear of COVID-19 exposure, officials say. A Cy-Fair ISD teacher who was charged with endangering a child has since bonded out of jail after her 13-year-old son was found in the trunk of her car at a drive-through COVID testing site on Monday, officials say. Sarah Beam was reportedly taken into custody at 3 p.m. Saturday and posted a $1,500 bond around 4:45 p.m. that same day. According to court documents, on January 3rd, Beam pulled into the drive-through testing site located at 11355 Felton Road in northwest Harris County when a witness reported hearing something in the trunk. The witness said that when Beam unlatched the trunk, the boy was found lying down inside. Court documents say the witness told Beam that she would not receive a COVID test until the child was removed from the trunk and placed into the backseat of the vehicle. The witness then called the police. Beam allegedly told authorities that her son had tested positive and she was taking him to the site for additional testing in order to protect herself from being exposed. Beam decided to put the boy in the trunk of the car. Authorities were able to view surveillance cameras showing the moment the child exited the trunk of the car and got into the back seat. And yeah, this is, one of the tweet responses up here, Linda Endicott, says, "This is the kind of fucking insanity that the legacy media has promoted with its nonstop fear-mongering," which it is. This woman's so afraid, so afraid of getting the Pinko pox that she would put a child, her child, as a teacher, by the way, into the trunk of the car to avoid being exposed. This is insanity at this point. This is craziness. I wonder if we can listen to her and her side of it.
A Cypress Falls high school teacher accused of putting her 13-year-old.
Whoops.
Strong winds caused most of the damage.
A Cypress Falls high school teacher accused of putting her 13-year-old son inside her car trunk has bonded out of jail. Sarah Beam is charged with child endangerment. We're told she was at a drive-through COVID-19 testing site in Northeast Harris County when a worker found the 13-year-old and notified police. Beam allegedly said her son tested positive for COVID and she did not want to be exposed. Beam is now out on a $1,500 bond. Cy-Fair ISD says Beam has been placed on administrative leave.
Good.
A
Absolutely.
Cypress Falls high school
Shut up. Good. Good. She needs to be on administrative leave because I wouldn't trust her around kids. Here's an interesting one. Reuters fact checks. Employees were not asked to wear face masks during a Zoom meeting because of a staff member's fear of unmasked people. The screenshot of an email shared on social media originated from the satirical TikTok account. We're not going to go into the Reuters article for this because it's flat out bullshit. And the reason I say that it's flat out bullshit is because if we remember all the way back at the beginning of this bullshit pandemic, the Wisconsin Department of Public Resources. It was the Department of Public Resources. The game wardens. The game wardens came out and said that, yes, because of the stigma attached to this, if you were in your home and you were on a Zoom meeting, you were required to wear a mask. So this particular instance may be satirical, possibly, but that doesn't mean that it's never happened before. Natural resources, not public resources. The DNR, yes, I remember that story now. Yeah, the DNR came out and said, yeah, if you're working from home on a Zoom meeting, you have to wear a mask while you're on the Zoom meeting. I think that's all the Pinko Pox stuff that we have. I think that's all of it. Holy shit. We're flying through everything today too, you guys. Holy shit. All right. From U.S. News and World Report. Judge orders charges dropped against Epstein jail guards. By the Associated Press, wire service content. By Larry Newmaster of the Associated Press. A judge on Monday ordered charges dropped against 2 Bureau of Prison guards who admitted to falsifying records after Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself in jail over 2 years ago. The guards, Tobin Noel and Michael Thomas, had agreed to deferred prosecutions deals late May that required them to admit their guilt with the understanding that charges in a federal indictment would be dismissed if they followed the rules of their agreement for 6 months. They were also required to do 100 hours of community service. Prosecutors last week requested the charges be dropped, and Judge Annalisa Torres ordered the dismissal on Monday. Epstein, 66, was awaiting sex trafficking trial when he took his own life, honk honk, at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in August of 2019. Yeah, no, he most certainly didn't, but good try. From NBC News, I remember at the top of the show, Quest Fanning was requesting this one. From NBC News, Cyber Ninjas, a company that led Arizona GOP election audit, is shutting down. From Dartanuro Clark, Cyber Ninjas, the company that led a partisan review of the 2020 ballots in Arizona, is closing down following a scathing report by election officials and the threat of $50,000 a day in fines. Cyber Ninjas is shutting down. All employees have been let go, Rod Thompson, the company's representative, said in a text message Thursday evening. The Florida-based company, founded in 2013, has less than a dozen employees, according to its LinkedIn page. A reporter for The Guardian earlier Thursday reported Cyber Ninja's plans to shut down. Maricopa County Superior Judge John Hanna said that he would impose a $50,000 fine against Cyber Ninjas every day until it hands over documents related to the so-called audit after the Arizona Republic newspaper filed a public records request, the Associated Press reported on Thursday. Jack Willencheck, a lawyer for cyber ninjas, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Election officials released a report on Wednesday rebutting almost every claim in the ballot review. It concluded that nearly 80 claims made by cyber ninjas were misleading or false. Honk honk. Honk honk indeed. This was an intimidation request. Absolutely. And I'm guessing that this was what it meant to do. What the $50,000 a day fine was meant to do, to shut them down. State Senate Republicans announced the results of their conspiracy-laden audit of it. Jeez. Dude. Try to be somewhat objective, NBC. At least somewhat. Of the 2020 presidential election results in September, it concluded that President Brandon had won 360 more votes than Maricopa County had awarded him in the official count. Truth is truth, numbers are numbers, Arizona Senate President Karen Fann said at the hearing last year on the review of the audit. State Senate Republicans hired cyber ninjas to conduct an election audit of ballots in the Maricopa County, the state's most populous county, after Biden flipped the state to blue for the first time in decades, beating former President Trump by more than 10,400 votes. Honk honk. Honk honk. Honk honk. The ballot review grew out of Republican legislatures' efforts to overturn Brandon's victory, even as Trump's top cybersecurity officials at the time said the election was the most secure in American history. AG Barr also said the Justice Department found no evidence of honk honk widespread voter fraud. Look, here's the issue, because I know that a lot of people are coming out and saying, well, it's just the Arizona Republicans are coming out here. They're trying to overturn the election because they want President Trump back, and that's all they can think about is getting President Trump back. Which I've told you, and I don't know if they know this or not. I don't know if they understand this or not. But what I know is that as soon as President Brandon put his hand on the Bible and said, come on, man. I do solemnly swear to uphold the thing, man. Come on. And so help me, the big guy and stuff. Man, come on. He was the president. As soon as he did that, he was the president. And nothing, no audit, no anything else can change that. But what they can do in all of this, what they can do for all of this is come around and look at their election laws and figure out where the problems are. So we don't have to go through this again. So we don't have to sit back and try to audit everything again every year from here to the end of eternity. The thing, man. Come on. Andy Yang got back in the news this week. The fact is, Dem should have let Bernie and Hillary go at fair and square in 2016, which Bernie probably wins, and Bernie probably beats Trump in 16. Oh, the Democrat Party is sometimes very anti-democratic impulses. Oh, we got the whipped cream out here for you guys, and I'm going to give you $1,000 a week just for existing. Oh, moron. I don't think that Bernie would have won against Trump in 16. I don't think the U.S. was ready for the socialism. Rigged or not, I don't think that they're ready for that. California is, but I don't think the rest of Middle America is. And in fact, we'll never know because we can't go back and do it again, but I think that Bernie would have been stomped even harder. Because people like Yang, people like Bernie are out there scaring Middle America. Yeah, they sound great to the coastal elites, the people in Vermont, the people in Massachusetts, the people in California. But for people here in Wisconsin, or Georgia, I know that's coastal, or Missouri or something like that, that's a scary prospect. All right, just a few more, then we're going to be done. This asshole. GOP Senator Ron Johnson said he's running for a third term in Wisconsin. Primary him, please. Somebody go and primary him. He promised on Hannity that he wasn't going to run for a third term because he stands in solidarity with term limits. And no, I will not vote for him a third time. Because I also stand in solidarity with term limits. You made a promise to the American people, and now you're changing it. And by the way, it's funny to me that people are suddenly remembering that he made this promise. They didn't remember that 2 weeks ago. And of course, they have to come out and tell you he's a staunch ally of former President Trump. Senator Ron Johnson, a staunch ally of former President Trump, announced Sunday that he would seek a third term in the key battleground state of Wisconsin. He's been in the Senate for 12 years. It's not just that he is a staunch ally of Trump. He is a staunch ally of whatever Republican is going to get him the most power. He's like Sean Hannity in that aspect. The announcement came despite Ron Johnson, a Republican, promising not to run for a third term if he won in 2016. He addressed that vow in an op-ed Sunday in the Wall Street Journal. During the 2016 campaign, I said it would be my last campaign and final term. That was my strong preference and my wife's. We both look forward to a normal private life, he wrote in the piece. Neither of us anticipated the Democrats' complete takeover of government and the disastrous policies they have already inflicted on America and the world. To say nothing of those they threaten to enact in the future, Johnson continued. I believe America is in peril, much as I'd like to ease the quiet retirement. I don't feel I should. Countless people have encouraged me to run, saying they rely on me to be their voice, to speak plain and obvious truths, and other elected leaders shirk from expressing. Truths the elite in government, mainstream media, and big tech don't want you to hear, Johnson said. Johnson, you are the elite in Washington. You are a millionaire business leader from Wisconsin who paid money to have your stupid fucking seat. You made a promise to the people of Wisconsin that you stood in solidarity with term limits and you were going to be done. And no, I will not be voting for you this time around. In fact, I will be voting for your primary opponent and I will be leaving your line blank come November. So that's what we have coming off of that. From the Blaze. This has been very interesting to me because, yeah, this reeks of the fact and screams of the fact that they don't think that they can beat him. Democrats quietly plot to use provision in the Constitution to bar Trump from holding political office, according to a report from Chris Enlow. As Democrats face increasingly bleak projections in 2022 and 2024, a group of Democratic lawmakers is reportedly plotting to stop former President Trump from ever holding office again. About a dozen Democratic lawmakers have been quietly speaking about using the constitutional mechanism to prevent Trump from ever becoming president again, according to The Hill. Harvard Law School professor Lawrence Tribe, a left-leaning constitutional scholar, told The Hill that some members of Congress and their staffs have quietly sought his advice on how the Constitution could be used to thwart Trump from holding office. Some of those lawmakers include Jerry Nadler, Wasserman Schultz, and Jamie Raskin, the report noted. The effort is focused on using a provision in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment against Trump and others who they claim participated in the events of January 6, 2021. And this is, by the way, the reason that in spite of the fact that nobody in the Capitol Selfie Fest has been charged with insurrection, they continue to say insurrection. They continue to use that word, in spite of the fact that nobody has been charged with insurrection. There's a reason they're doing that. That provision reads, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president, or hold any office, civil or military, under the U.S., or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the U.S., or as a member of any state or legislature, as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the U.S., shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, but Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Democrats first floated the idea, using the provision against Trump last January before his second impeachment. The answer of whether Democrats could use Section 3 of the 14th Amendment against Trump to prohibit him from ever holding office again is a highly complicated question over which constitutional scholars disagree. For example, some experts told The Hill that the mechanism is not self-executing and thus would require Congress to act. Tribe, on the other hand, suggested Congress would need to establish a neutral fact-finding body to determine whether Trump engaged in insurrection or rebellion, as the amendment states, or assign a federal court to establish whether Trump crossed that line. And that's it. And they're trying to use the same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I still think is a plant, by the way. That's not going to change. That's definitely not going to change. I still think that she is one that just says the right thing a little bit too perfectly. A little bit too well-timed. And this is after listening to her on Timcast, too, by the way. I listened to her on Timcast, and I came to the same conclusion. She is saying the right thing just a little bit too perfectly. But regardless, whether or not she is a plant or whether or not she's legitimate, they don't think they can beat her, so they are trying to pull her down and say that she engaged in insurrection. Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, all the same people they're trying to pull this off to. And of course, former President Trump. They don't think they can win. And this is a dirty fucking way to do it. If you want to win, just put out better ideas. Plain and simple. Let's talk about the jobs report. Biden touts strong December wage increases, brushes off weak job growth. From Christina Wilkie. President Brandon said Friday that the strong wage gains achieved during his first year in office represent the economy he promised Americans as he addressed the release of December's jobs report. Average hourly earnings rose 0.6% for the month and were up 4.7% year over year. Meanwhile, inflation is up 6.5 to 7%. Some industries have seen especially strong wage growth in the last year. Leisure, hospitality, and restaurant wages have increased a whopping 14.1% over the past 12 months, outpacing all industries. I do have the coof. Ron, I said that at the top of the show. I had a major fever last night, a massive fever last night. I have had a wet cough and runny nose through the entire day. It seems to be a mild case. It must be Irma Gerd variant, but yeah, I do have it. I haven't even had to PCR test to know that I have it. And my sense of taste is a little bit off. I can still taste things, but they just taste weird. Like, I know what the Power Punch from Bang is supposed to taste like, and this tastes weird. But yes, I'm pretty, almost 95% positive I have the coof right now. Just based on the collection of symptoms that I have. But the news stops for nobody. So here we are. This is the economy I promised and hoped for, Biden said in remarks at the White House. Where the biggest benefits go to the people who work the hardest and who are more often left behind, man. And the people who have been ignored before. Come on, man. The people who just want a decent chance to build a decent life for their families. Come on, man. The unemployment rate in December fell to a new post-pandemic low of 3.9%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, but the economy added only 199,000 new jobs to non-farm payrolls, less than half of what economists had predicted. Brandon framed the nationwide labor shortage as a reflection of more worker choice and mobility, not, as his critics allege, a year of overly generous government pandemic benefits that have sapped people's need for work to work for a living. Americans aren't quitting jobs in record numbers to stay home, Brandon said. They're moving up to better jobs with better pay and much better benefits, man. A deluxe apartment in the sky and stuff. Come on, man. This isn't about workers walking away and refusing to work. It's about workers able to step up and to provide for themselves and families, he said. Okay, well, show me the data behind that, because everything that I've seen, with the exception of people having to raise wages to get people in the door for hospitality jobs, is leftward or sideways mobility. They're not going up. They're not moving in upwards mobility, especially with inflation. You have some upward mobility with hospitality workers because of the 14.1%, and that's keeping on pace with inflation. But your average data entry person, your average banker, your average factory worker has taken a pay cut this past year. All right, from the New York Post, this is an op-ed. Biden's sorry bid to spin December's weak jobs report by the Post editorial board. No author given. Another bad jobs report shows the obvious. Bidenomics is a total disaster. President Biden knows it too, even though he cheered Friday's jobs report before accusing Republicans of being concerned about high inflation only because they want people to be too poor to afford cars. The Labor Department reported that the U.S. added just 199,000 jobs in December. That's the worst of the year, with the fewest jobs added since the president took office, and significantly less than half of the 422,000 jobs economists expected. Yes, the unemployment rate fell to 3.9%, down from 4.2%, but that's because the rate doesn't count people who've given up. Yes, you're U6, just like I've told you. This follows a disappointing November report, which also failed to meet expectations. In fact, 4 out of the last 5 months saw fewer jobs added than had been projected. Yet Biden touted the jobs report as a historic day for economic recovery, bragging that the U.S. economy has added a total of 6.4 million jobs over the last 12 months. Well, Democrat governments, and by the way, no, hold on, we'll talk about that in just a second. But by the way, Democrat governors in states eliminated 7 million jobs over the pandemic, so 6.4 million. Woo! And while he said inflation is still a concern, he argued that the American Rescue Plan and his administration's other economic policies are driving a strong rebound from the pinko-pox pandemic. Today, America is the only leading economy in the world where the economy as a whole is stronger than before the pandemic, he said. Sorry, but the 3.6 million Americans who lost their jobs thanks to the pandemic and have yet to get them back. And that's the $2 trillion, and it's that $2 trillion rescue plan passed unilaterally by Democrats at a time when the last thing the already recovering economy needed was a rescue that has fueled inflation. Worse, it seems that Brandon, unlike the Republicans he'd announced, is itching to do even more economic damage. The same day the jobs report came out, his lawyers were before the Supreme Court arguing for his vaccine mandate on employers, which would force them to lay off workers who refuse the jab and require them to waste resources on enforcement. So, a lot of stuff moving here, a lot of stuff shaking, and yeah, he's coming in like a pigeon. He's coming in, shitting all over everything, and strutting around like he fucking won. But he won't tell you about the U6. He won't tell you about that. Alright, last one, then we'll do one of the rules of acquisition. Head out of here for the day. Florida man found with explosive device near rally for 1/6 riot suspect, police say. From Jake Thomas. Authorities in Florida arrested 22-year-old Florida man. His name is Florida Man. It's not Garrett Smith. It's Florida Man. Thursday morning after finding him with a homemade explosive device at a rally in support of a suspect in the January 6th Selfie Fest, police said. Describing Florida Man as a sleeper, Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri said the incident is particularly worrisome. Detectives said they don't know what Smith intended to do with the explosive. He has no criminal history, there's no intelligence from other agencies, and he has no social media. Gualtieri said at a press conference. Those are the ones who are the most concerning and the hardest to figure out, Gualtieri said. Gualtieri added on Friday that deputies spotted Smith, who lives with his parents in Oldsmar, running away from the protests as if fleeing something. He was wearing all black clothing, a face covering, and carrying a black backpack, according to the sheriff's office. Something caused him to want to get out of there quickly, but I don't know what it is, says Gualtieri. Deputies arrested Smith on charges of loitering and prowling. While taking him into the custody, they searched his backpack and discovered an explosive device, police said. Deputies did not find any other such devices after searching the area. Bomb technicians confirmed the device was indeed an explosive, and deputies found M80 fireworks in the car. Said Gualtieri, after obtaining a search warrant for Smith's home, police said they found more explosives, including the pipe type and hand grenade type, along with nails and duct tape. Smith has been charged with possessing a destructive device. Gee, I wonder what it was that he was trying to do over there. It could have been very destructive, said Gualtieri. He could have hurt a lot of people, depending on the number of nails or whatever other things are in the explosive devices, because that's what they do. They pack it with those and it goes off and people are hit with it. Smith was apprehended at a protest in support of Jeremy Brown, who is currently being held at Pinellas County Jail on federal charges stemming from the Selfie Fest at the Capitol last year. Brown is being held without bond pending trial. Yeah, hey, a guy in all black at a rally for a political enemy with an explosive device. I wonder what it is that he's trying to do with that. All right, and that is it for the news for the day. And the last thing that we're going to do is look at one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, then head out of here for the day. No, they don't have to pay the unemployment for the vaccine, by the way. That was one of the stipulations, is that if you refuse to get the vaccine, that was taken as you resigning, therefore there's no unemployment involved with it. Alright, and the last thing we always do on Monday, we've been tearing through these pretty quickly, is read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. So we look at this, we look at one of these, and we decide if it affects our lives and if we don't. And we are on the 45th rule of acquisition. Expand or die. This is from Acquisition, an Enterprise episode, the introduction in Enterprise to the Ferengi, and the introduction of the United Earth fleet, because there wasn't a UFP yet. From the episode Acquisition. What was interesting about this episode is that Ethan Phillips, who played Neelix in Voyager, was there, but we heard the Ferengi tongue for one of the first times because, of course, no universal translators, and this was the first time that everybody was running into the Ferengi. But this is the first time we heard their language, but also we see the NX-01 traveling through and exploring space that they've never been to before, and the Ferengi coming in, looking, seeing the ship, and deciding that they needed to come out and acquire that to come back out and, well, spread the profits. As far as expand or die, if you are business-wise, that's what you need to do. If you're not expanding, you're contracting, and your business is going to go elsewhere. And, I mean, we look at this, too, just in regular business. Like, anything with sales in it, you hope to, even no matter what, expand the numbers that you have from year over year. No matter what it happens, and no matter how slow it is, you still hope to get at least 1% more than you had the last year. You should always be seeking, if you are in business, to expand. And if you can't expand, then yes, you're probably going to be shutting down. So absolutely, expand or die. Expand your influence, expand your business, and expand what it is that you're doing. And that is going to be it for the day. Let's head out of here for this. I'm going to go blow my nose and take a nap, and then tell my job the good news that 5 days of quarantine are coming up for me, but we'll still be here because, hey, if I'm locked in the house, I can still do this. Where's my outro music? Let's do that. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Good day today. Busy day today. A lot of people in here today. 10 overall throughout most of the day here, so thank you guys for that. We'll be back here later on tonight for the inaugural episode 1 of Ed Zed Redemption. Definitely looking forward to that. I have to go fix a few things on my Nightbot side, obviously, because that's going to be coming up here. And, well, there's a person that was mentioned in the Nightbot stuff that is no longer a part of the organization, so we'll have to go change a few things with that. Otherwise, if you can't make it tonight, we'll be back here tomorrow morning for more Contemporary. No matter what, we'll be back here for more of that, and we'll see you then. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.